أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakumullah khair for joining us for day 8 of Little Ramadan Reminders. Today I will be combining two topics that I had originally separated into, as if you look at the list from the first video that I had day 8 and day 9. I'm going to combine these two topics, Jannah and Jahannam. I was going to describe Jannah and describe Jahannam, but I decided I'm going to give a bit of a different angle at this topic, something that we can make benefit of, that there isn't much available online that discusses it from this particular angle. You can find many videos online that describe Jannah and describe Jahannam, some very famous videos. But today I want to remind us about the relevance of Jannah and Jahannam, how the belief and how the knowledge of its existence, how it plays a role in our daily life's affairs, how it should affect our actions. So it goes without saying that life is a test. We all know that we're constantly put in positions where we have to make some very difficult choices. We have to choose between lying or speaking the truth. We have to choose between being honest or dishonest. We have to choose between stealing or taking something that doesn't belong to us, and working with being patient or being impatient, and so on. And from the perspective of Islam and from what Allah Azza wa Jal teaches us, we are put in a position to choose to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to disobey Him. And that is essentially the meaning of our existence. Whether or not we're going to obey the commands and prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or we're going to disobey them. Now the problem with obeying, or the concept of obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal, and the difficulty that sometimes is attached to it, sometimes you have to sacrifice the things that you want. Sometimes you have to do things that are a little more than what you're accustomed to, or you have to change your lifestyle. You have to sacrifice certain friends, or you have to sacrifice, for example, not free mixing with the opposite gender, something that's not many people are accustomed to. If you have a house and you have a mortgage on it, you have to let that go. If you want a car, you can't get a car on financing that has an interest rate on it. There's so many different possible choices that we have in life, and they're often very difficult for us because it's difficult to let go of the things that we want. And so Jannah and Jahannam are placed there as our motivator to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jannah is the greatest reward imaginable for a human being. There's no greater reward than a place where all you do is just socialize and enjoy yourself and eat and have fun. All the most beautiful things in this world are perfected in that world, and then some. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us that there's things that no eye has seen and no mind has ever imagined. And then you have these on the other side of things, you have the punishment of Jahannam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us that there is a very severe consequence for disobeying Him. And so the problem with motivation is that if a person becomes distracted with things that takes their attention away from what's motivating them, especially when that thing is not right in front of them, then a person might slowly become demotivated, and they might start getting distracted with other things. As mentioned in the previous halqa of these reminders, is that Allah Azza wa Jal called us insan. And insan, it's from the word nisyan, which is forgetfulness. Allah Azza wa Jalla calls us, like he named us as a creation, as the forgetful ones. We forget. That's how it is. If you were to sit there and think about Jannah and Jahannam for hours and hours, you would be very, very driven, but then give yourself a month or two, or maybe a year or two, and you could forget all about it. You could end up getting distracted with houses and cars and fun and all this kind of stuff. And this is why, in order for us, because the most important thing that must be understood is that Jannah is a fact and Jahannam is a fact. Whether we remember or not, whether we even believe or not, it is the ending point where everybody's going to go. You're either going to Jannah or you're going to Jahannam, and there's nowhere else to go. After we die, we're going to be accounted. We did good, and Allah Azza wa Jalla is pleased with us, we go to Jannah, inshallah. And if we did bad, or for any reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for us to be thrown into Jahannam, then we are thrown into Jahannam. May Allah protect us. And so that is why, because it is a fact, it is a 100% certainty, we have to prepare for it. So the first thing is we have to have a very good idea of what it is that we're working towards. We have to be able to visualize it really clearly. And the second thing is we must implement into our lives a way where we can remind ourselves constantly. We have at least a small reminder a day, something that keeps us attached, or better yet, having a lifestyle that constantly reminds us of this end that we are all heading towards. So the first obstacle in this topic of knowing what it is that we are being offered is, first of all, understanding what is the thing that distracts you from that, which is the dunya. And when you look around the dunya, what do we see? We see beautiful cars, we see big beautiful houses, we see see lots of money, and we see traveling around the world, and trees and gardens and lakes and rivers, beautiful weather on certain parts, mountains and hiking. There's the social gatherings and so on, getting married and having kids. There's so many things and so many ways that a person can enjoy himself in this dunya. And so what has to be understood is what is the true value of this world? Right now, it looks fantastic in front of most of our eyes. It looks very enjoyable, it looks very fun. But when you take a step back and you think about it, well, let's see, is it really as nice as it seems? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that لو كانت الدنيا تعدل عند الله جناح بعوضة ما سقى كافر منها شربة ماء. If this world were to reach the value of the wing of a fly in the sight of Allah, then Allah would have not allowed any of the disbelievers to even have a sip of water from it. So it's so far below the value of the wing of a mosquito in the sight of Allah. So when we look at the value of a mosquito, what is the value of a mosquito? It's of a mosquito wing. It's worth not just nothing, less than nothing. And so that's how low the mosquito wing is to us. If the world were to reach that value in His sight as the wing of a mosquito is in our sight, then the world would be so valuable that He would have punished the disbelievers with not allowing them to have any water. But it's so worthless, He lets them have water and palaces and all this wealth and all these gardens and so on. That's how worthless this world is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to put this world into perspective, it's important to understand how the human mind understands contrast and comparing in terms of the value of things, in terms of how we perceive how enjoyable something actually is. So I'll draw your attention to any one of you who are old enough to have been there when the Atari first came out, and how amazing and exciting it was to be able to play that thing. And then when the Nintendo came out, I remember it was the most incredible moment in my teenage years when the Nintendo came out. And again, all the kids just were amazed by it. It was the most incredible piece of technology in the world. And then, so now when the Nintendo came out, you look at the Atari and you think, oh, well, the Atari is kind of junk. And then when the PlayStation came out, and then the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3, and we keep on looking back at the previous one that we were just so amazed with, and we think, yeah, it's kind of garbage now. You just throw it into a corner. It's worthless. And so then you look at any technology, computers, when the Commodore 64, when the early Macs came out, we were just blown away. It was the most amazing thing. And then today we look at them and we just throw them into people can't even find a place to dump these things. That's how worthless they are. It actually costs you money to dump it in some places, those big CRT screens and stuff like that. And so the value of things diminishes when you have something better, when you contrast it. When it's all you have, this is the most amazing thing in the world. But when you have something better, suddenly you look back and say, oh, this is garbage. So if we now look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that tells us that the world is so worthless in the sight of Allah, it's worth less than a mosquito wing in our valuation, in how we value things. That's how valuable Jannah is. That's how much ahead it is in terms of beauty, in terms of enjoyment, in terms of what it has to offer. So don't get caught up with your little Atari right now and think that this is the whole world and killing people over it and doing horrible things, or just even disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you sit there when you want to play a little more Atari. Look at all these famous people. How many of them have killed themselves or are addicted to drugs and drinking? If they were really happy, this really was such a great place, they would be the happiest, most content people ever. But they are the most discontent psychological messes that the world has to offer. It's because this world is enjoyable in small amounts. And so what we have to do is prepare ourselves for that reward in the akhirah. And just recently, actually, I had a funny discussion with somebody where we were talking about traveling the world. And this one person I know just really wants to just travel the world and see all these different sites, which is fine, which is a nice thing. But what's funny about it is that I remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that talked about the last man to exit the hellfire, so the worst human being in Jannah, who finally enters Jannah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla gives him a house the size of earth, essentially. There's narrations that mention this. And so for him to be given a house the size of earth, that means that for you to go travel the whole entire world today is equivalent to just doing a tour of the worst house in Jannah. And therefore we must contrast, we must remember, we must think about our motivator for our akhirah, and so that we're motivated to sacrifice, so that we're motivated to give up whatever we have. It doesn't mean giving up everything. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your share of this world. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us to make the dua, آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Give us in the dunya good and in the akhirah good. So we're not just asking only for the dunya, and we're not just abandoning everything and just letting the whole world burn. No, we build and we enjoy ourselves, but while maintaining the commands and prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is coming after death is a certainty. We are going to be held accountable by the creator of the universe, and we're either going to Jannah or we're going to Jahannam. May Allah protect us from that. And so we must make preparations. And if you find yourself not motivated enough to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, too distracted with the dunya, the main cause of it is not spending enough time getting to know what reward and punishment await you after you die. And the problem is that just because you really create a very strong image in your mind doesn't mean that it's not going to go away. Again, we are insan, we are forgetful. Create habits in your life. You read Quran once a day. You read at least a page or two. You watch a video once in a while, like maybe every couple of days, about Jannah and Jahannam. You sit and gather with the people who are going to remind you of these sort of things. Go to the masjid, just pray salah with the jama'ah. These sorts of things remind you of your akhirah. By doing these things, you create an atmosphere for yourself that reminds you of your akhirah and keeps your motivation strong to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because truly, if we neglect this, and we just allow all this to slip away, well, it's your fault. You're the one who didn't put the time in to remind yourself. This is something that Allah Azza wa Jalla has placed in front of us, and He told us, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسَ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. And in this, those who are competing should compete for the akhirah, for Jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our lives filled with reminders of the Jannah and filled with reminders of the punishment of Jahannam, and allow us to put in the right effort so that we earn His pleasure and so that He forgives our sins, and so that we all, inshaAllah, all of us come together and meet in Jannah around the pond of Rasulullah. Jazakumullah khair, and inshaAllah we will see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.